Dan Sauter, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, man. Thanks for doing this. I really appreciate it for both me and all of our classmates.
Hey, I'm delighted to have you here. Delighted to do this, and glad to catch up because we have shared history. We go back to Buckner, and then we were in companies near each other, so we knew each other a long time ago.
We did. Yeah, it's always confusing. It's like I was in the Army for 27 years, and you remember people and value the relationships, but I think I was at 19 different posts, and so sometimes you can't remember. Hey, was it Fort Hood? Was it Fort Stewart? Was it same thing at West Point? You can't remember. Hey, was it during Beast? Was it during Plebe Year? Was it at Buckner? Was it at Beast Detail?
Right.
So yeah, it's great.
Or was it that impossibly confusing math class where I was trying to figure out what was going on, and the only friendly face in the room was the other confused person, and I remember them.
Yeah,
That was usually mine.
not unless it was rock math with me.
Well, right. Well, there you go. So at least we know. At least we can rule one thing out.
Right.
So, but I was mentioning before we went on. I do have a picture of us at Buckner, and that's actually I remembered where you and I had met. So, but where are you now today, and what are you up to today?
So I live in Huntsville, Alabama, and I'm working with a startup that's outside of Oakland, California.
Yeah.
I had mentioned to you in a post, my father passed away this Monday evening, and he was near and dear. So I'm
Sorry for your loss. Yeah.
remote command post, alternate command post in Southern California, Claremont, where I grew up.
Yeah.
And, I was very fortunate to be here and hold his hand as he took his last breaths, and he was a fantastic supporter of mine and my wife and our children. So we'll miss him dearly, but I'm glad that I was there in the end.
Our prayers for you and your family for sure at this time. So
Yeah, thanks.
sorry to hear it.
One other thing just to highlight about him. So he was a Notre Dame graduate, so huge, sports camp, Notre Dame football, my entire upbringing, and but I'll tell you, he, getting to know West Point cadets, getting to hear the stories about West Point cadet. I am not sure when he passed if West Point and Army weren't number one in his heart, because he truly loved it. And
It might have edged out. It might have edged him out a little bit.
I don't think he would admit that publicly, but I think it was he was a number one fan of West Point.
Well, but also a lot of West Point in his downline. As we will talk about his progeny and their progeny ended up being quite involved. So we'll certainly hear more about that as we go on.
Yeah, that's an interesting story. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're a California boy, another California cadet. I was the place we actually probably met was at the first California cadets meeting where they got us all together as plebes and said, "You're all California cadets." But all I remember is Raffi Marini getting up and giving a speech. But that's from that meeting. But anyway, that's probably where we first saw each other. So California, Southern California guy. What was so obviously a football player, but what were other things you were into growing up and as a kid, and what was your interest?
So my dad owned a restaurant in downtown Claremont, where I grew up, and so I worked in the restaurant. I cooked brunch. I was basically slave labor for a major portion of my childhood. I played different sports. Played soccer. Soccer was my first sport, and didn't start playing football until my sophomore year of high school.
Is that right?
Played baseball. Yeah. So went to Catholic high school in the adjacent city of Laverne called Damien High School, which has produced a lot of West Point Academy students. But that was my start. And then one day, I had no military background from my dad. He's got a couple brothers that served in Vietnam, but Coach Johnny Burnett, who was a fantastic recruiter in California and Texas. And if you think of the Army football roster, a large number of those people came from those two states. And he knocked at my coach's door, and my coach said, "Hey, you got to go there." And I'm like, "Well, I don't know much about it." So he came to my house, and he talked to my mom. And the thing I love to this day about Johnny Burnett is, he holds no punches. So, I can remember my dad and mom sitting in a room at our house in Claremont, and he just didn't hold any punches. Said, "Hey, here's what you're going to experience." and my mom and dad were smiling the whole time, and Coach Burnett left out of the front
They
door,
were smiling.
and my
Right.
my mom closed the door and she turned around at me and she said, "You're not going there." So it was interesting.
Is that right? Is
Yeah, yeah.
that right?
This is
Yeah.
scared her a little bit.
Now, well, that's an interest. But there's an interesting piece there that there was, at least back then, there was a bit of a pathway that the recruiters would go to certain schools, et cetera. And so you were in that, like you said, several West Pointers come out of that school, that area, right? So they would all kind of the recruiters would make stops at those high schools looking for talent.
Yeah, that's absolutely the case, and had a strong admissions guy here named Bill McLaughlin. So it was a rush. I hadn't done anything, even thought about West Point until October. And Coach Burnett showed up and met with my family, and then invited me out to West Point. A free trip to New York City. I thought, you can't pass that down or pass that up. And
Yeah.
really like the campus. And
This is October your senior year.
my senior year, yeah. So
No kidding. All right.
Yeah.
And so where was your head? Was there other schools you wanted to go to? I mean, were in September of that year, what were you thinking where did you think you were going to head?
So there were I was going to play football at some West Coast colleges. So I'd made a couple of visits to those schools, and none of them compete with West Point. I was absolutely surprised that I got into West Point because my SATs were not good. And I think I'm probably the lowest of 99% of the people that I've heard. But in fact, on my recruiting trip, I had to go see Colonel Capps, that was the head of the English department. And I think it was just to make sure that my brain was actually functioning. So all interesting. What got in?
Yeah. That's great. All right, and then so once he made the trip, you went back for the visit. What did they do with you on that visit? Because there's different stories from different sports about how they tour the hockey guys have a different story then. So how about the football recruiting trip? What did that look like?
So you flew in and you got partnered up with somebody that was from your local area. So there were quite a few Yorba Linda, Orange County football players. So I got paired up with them.
Right.
We got to tour the facilities, got to go to class. Absolutely took us down to Eisenhower Hall. I thought it was great. You could drink beer at 18 at Eisenhower Hall. Met with, as I said, Colonel Capps. But really just a good weekend, very informative. And my thought process was, hey, I could go for 2 years, and if I don't like it, I can leave. And 2 years of good education. And so I said it's too good of an opportunity to pass out. And actually, I got back from that trip, and I've got 3 sisters and a brother. And I went over to a friend of my sister's house, and her mom said, "Hey, I heard you're going to West Point." Hadn't made up my mind by then, at that point, but I'd like you to meet my other daughter. And I thought, hey, this is going to be a good gig. 2 years.
That sold the deal.
Yeah. So it's interesting.
That sold the deal. Amazing. And so you got in, and off you went. So now the very different experience coming in there as a football player, right? Because you during B, Stephen, you guys were pulled aside a little bit. How did you find that process?
It was all good. I mean, I was never really concerned about the military aspect of it, just because, I mean, as an athlete, you're yelled at your entire life, and so that really didn't bother me.
Yeah.
I knew that my real challenge would be the academics. It was different for athletes, as we got pulled out and we went out to, made the march out to Frederick, and then we got pulled out after a day or so and went to football camp. And then it was off and running for 4 years of football.
Now, what was your recruited position, and where did you end up playing? How did that all turn out? Because sometimes it doesn't match up. It did.
Yeah, so in high school, I was a linebacker and I was a guard. And when I went to West Point, we were running an I formation, and so I played guard, which is really you block the linebackers. But when Coach Young changed the scheme to the wishbone, those responsibilities in the offensive line change, and so I moved out to tackle, which means you go out and chop linebackers, and so that was my position for the last 2 years.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah. And so as a recruited athlete, you just came in and you were on the squad.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely right.
Got it. All right.
And then as a freshman, I mean, you
And
played.
then yeah.
Yeah, as a freshman, you played freshman football, so you did some traveling, got off most, and then I think from my sophomore year on, I was playing traveling with varsity, so it was good experience.
Yeah. Yeah. And which company were you in as a plebe?
So I was an E2 brew dog.
E2. All right.
It was a good company. I
I'm
liked
gonna.
it. It's good upperclassmen, H.R. McMaster, Len Beaver. Um, yeah, it was a good company.
Yeah. And they how did they uh, treat the core squatters? Sometimes the core squatters are actually penalized in a way. Other times the core squatters are welcomed. How was the attitude there at your plebe year anyway?
I think we had a pretty good mix of core squad athletes, upperclassmen in E2. So it was just, I don't think it was anything out of the ordinary.
Okay. And off you went. And so plebe year, the academics were the concern. How did that turn out?
It was good. I mean, I did fairly well in academics. I had a head start because I was in rock math, rock English, rock whatever. So it was a good. I had a good education at Damien High School. So um, I wasn't really too concerned about it, but that was probably the challenge. I think I had 2 point something, my plebe year, and improved as I went on through the next
Yeah.
3 years.
I tell you, it's much less disorienting to start in the rock sections and gradually move up than my experience of being put in the higher sections due to terrible error and falling down the tree limbs of sections had
Yeah,
to end up near the bottom. So trust me, you had a pretty good experience.
yeah, I
So
did.
that's
Trust
good.
me.
Yeah. So freshman team traveled some, but what? How was the transition over to G3? Because famously you were a gopher. I've just had like several podcasts with gophers. I'm delighted. I've had a gopher fest lately. So talk about the transition over to G3, which is where you're a yearling.
Yeah, I really liked it. It was a good company. We have good upperclassmen. Johnny
Yeah.
Magnus's brother Tom was in that company. So we had a lot of lot of familiar faces. It was a good company. I personally think that G3 was the best of '86. We had a really good crew for 3 years, and so being the best
Wait a
company,
minute. I was just down the hallway. That's not fair, Dan.
the best company in the best
I live just
class
down the hallway.
history of West Point is pretty good. So I was very fortunate.
Well, that's the top of the top. Good for you.
I
You
mean,
had some real characters in that company.
really,
Weeze and
yeah,
Iverson. Come on
yeah,
now.
you can't argue with that. I mean, with the class and the caliber of people we had, you go Weasel, Joe DePino, Joe Schlachtenhoffen, Landon Lack, Bob Nabb, Stap Dog, Dave Jacopo, T. Schiffer, Rob Simmons. I mean,
Craig
we had a
Rollins, I just
very
talked to.
great tree.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had a great company.
And you had three football players,
Is that
right?
right?
You had Craig Rollins, Jay George, and yourself.
Yes, that's correct. Thanks for
You guys.
helping
That's
me
great.
remember.
So what were some but you lived down the hall from a pretty tremendous group of folks in I3, as I recall.
Yeah, I think it was probably the second best company.
You guys, we loved going down to visiting you guys. We really did. It was always a
Yeah, it was fun. I
you
thought it was
guys.
pretty good. H3 was good. I3 was good. G3 was good.
Yeah,
So
it
it
was
was
a good
good.
group.
Yeah.
It was a good group. And academics, upper class year, everything kept smooth. Kept smooth and good.
Yeah, you're trying to ask if I went to STAP? Is that we're trying to get it very politely?
No,
No,
no, no. I wouldn't. I would
I'm
never.
just
I would never ask you a question like that.
I'm just kidding. It was great. So step up from rock classes were good. I was HPA
Yeah.
engineering management, and I enjoyed the classes, and there were enough science classes in
Yeah.
there to keep me on my toes. But I mean, I had to work hard, but I really never struggled with academics.
But I mean, you were full on football. I mean, you were from sophomore year on, from yearling year, you were on varsity and travel team the whole bit, right?
Yeah, I like to laugh at when people talk about the course load that athletes take nowadays, and we were carrying 21 and a half credit hours playing football or varsity football. So we had the full experience, I think, of being student athletes.
Yeah, for sure. Now you room with George, I believe, or no? Who did you room with while you were there? We were talking about this.
So I roomed with I think probably first was Ross Clemens and probably Weasel, Bill Purcell,
Okay.
and then I roomed with
Yeah.
Nabbit and Stap Dog. I think those are probably my primary roommates. I had good roommates.
Yeah, yeah. Right. I'll put you in the room with Weeze. Might have hurt the Army football prospects in terms of the distraction factor. We should have. The coach should have weighed in on that.
That was definitely a problem in G3. We had a lot of extracurricular activities going on from
There was a
craps
lot of
tables
extracurricular activity.
in the day
Yeah.
room, and it was a fun company to be in. There was never a dull moment.
There was never a dull moment in G3. It's terrific.
We were good at practical jokes too. So Joey DePino, fantastic friend, and I can remember one time that I went in his room, and I don't know if crazy glue just came out or I don't know what it was, but for some reason I crazy glued everything in his room to the surface. And so I started on his desk, and he had a little hockey trophy that was like a crystal. And I got all four of those little, stands on the bottom. I crazy glued those. His big calendar that goes on his desk, I crazy glued that. All his pencils were glued into inside his desk. His shoes underneath his bed. His shoes in his closet. I went into his medicine cabinet and glued everything down there. And the story is, Joe came back in his room, and he was studying at his desk, and he put his arm against that crystal. And it just fell right off of came right off of the little holders on the bottom. And he started going around the room. Everything that he looked at was glued down. And he thought for sure that it was the BP. He was swearing up and down. He said, "It's the BP because I swept my room out later. She had already swept the hallways. And I know she was pissed off at me." And whoever was his roommate at that time said, "No, because she would have glued your stuff in the medicine cabinet." So he went over there, went in the medicine cabinet and grabbed his toothbrush. And as you remember, there was toothbrush holders, and then there was glass. And so he lifted his toothbrush up, and everything came up to include the glass. And so he was convinced that it was the BP for a while. I'm not sure how that got resolved, but again, great.
Well, it was known that the BPs in vengeance for a late sweep would go in and glue all your stuff down. I mean, they had nothing better going on. So that was a very logical conclusion.
It was fun. It was funny. And then Stap Dog.
I'm sure somehow he got you back.
I don't.
He had to have gotten you back.
If he did, it wasn't as good as the crazy glue.
Right.
But
what does Stap Dog do?
Stap Dog. Stap Dog was Stap Dog. He was just a great roommate. But Weasel, Weasel's got, people have stories about Weasel forever. But I remember our senior year, we played BC at night up at Mikey Stadium. And my dad, for the last 2 years, he went to every game, to include a game in Japan that we had, every single solitary game. So I signed up for pass to go down to New York City with my dad after the game. And the game was over, and I went to New York City, and I came back on Sunday, and everybody said, "Where were you?" And I said, "I was in New York City. I had a pass." And they said all the passes got revoked because they didn't want people leaving after a game late at night. And I'm like, shit. And I was really worried. And Weasel said, "Hey, not a problem." And so he went down to the CQ desk, opened that big green book where we signed up for passes, and tore out like 6 pages of the books. And it was no record that Dan Sauter was ever on an unauthorized 4-day or whatever it was, 2-day pass. So it was funny. But
Weeze was a man of solutions. He was a man of solutions.
He always.
You know what's great? There are so many stories about him, but when you listen to his podcast, you would swear he just went there and studied and marched in parades and graduated and on to be an excellent Patriot officer. He would never. He didn't let on for any of it.
The last part is true. He was an excellent Patriot officer.
It is true.
But I put the BS flag on all the other things. I've never met him. I mean, I don't think I've ever met a smarter guy than Weeze. He'd beat anybody in anything. He'd solve problems, math problems. He didn't ever have to work in school. I've watched him personally, no exaggeration, play a game of pool and play two different people in chess simultaneously with not watching the chessboard and beat them both. I mean, he's just phenomenal.
He competes even today in chess tournaments as a master. How about that?
It
So
is.
yeah, really, really incredible guy. Really incredible guy. And so you yourself went into the air defense artillery business. Was that by choice or by you looked up and said, "There I go"? Well, I guess you had the choice. It could have been artillery too, right?
Yeah. So when I graduated from West Point, I thought for sure that I'd do 5 years and get out.
Yeah.
But I really had a good English teacher, Major Ray Kenny, that was an air defender. I really liked our experience down at Fort Knox. We went out to the range and fired a Vulcan. 20 millimeter shooting,
Mm-hmm.
was interesting. And
Yeah.
I just didn't do enough research on the other branches. So I chose air defense for the wrong reasons, but I could not have made a better choice. And I really,
Yeah.
I was a short range air defense officer for the majority of my career. So I was, with guys in our class in infantry and armor. It was a great experience, and just the leadership of trying to make a difference in the lives of phenomenal, men and women soldiers. It was just, by the time I got to be a captain, that 5 year mark, I just said, hey, this is like being a coach on a sports team. You can really, shape your unit, and you can really shape the lives of men and women. And I could just go into story after story about American soldiers, and it's just compelled me to stay in for the 27 years.
So where were you at that decision point? Because you started in Korea, right? Figure that right?
I stayed as a graduate assistant coach for 6 months, which was really good.
Yeah.
Got to work with Jim Young for another year. We had great GAs, from all sports back there. Landon Lack was with us also because he had injured his knee and was back there rehabilitating.
Yeah.
Great experience. And one of the things that I valued most about it was it separated you from your West Point classmates. And so when you went to OBC, it wasn't like, hey, we got to go do everything that we never got to do at West Point simultaneously. You were in with a bunch of ROTC cadets and, graduates and OCS graduates.
Yeah.
And it was a good start. And the other advantage when I got to my first summit, which is Fort Hood, first Cav, is Weasel was already down there. Pinna was already down there. So, I mean, everything, the transition was made easier by, friends. Landon Lack was down there. Rick Minicozy was down there. We were all living close together in the unit.
Yeah, you had it they had it all mapped out.
They did. And Weasel was in my battalion and was able to show me the ropes as I got started. So got to meet Ingrid, DePinto. I mean, it was a great experience, that first summit at Fort Hood.
Yeah, that's great. And what was it like being a graduate assistant? We don't get many folks on it that actually had that. So where did you live, and what were you, a fresh lieutenant? How did that work?
So I live Rogie, who's one of my closest and most dear friends, godfather to one of my kids. I think we ended up spending about 7 years or 7 assignments together with our kids. But we lived together in New Windsor, and every day we drove over to West Point. There is an interesting story. So we worked at Buckner. We took guys through workouts there, and we did up at the stadium and did things. Well, Rogie and I were driving in my car, which just had really 2 seats in it, at about 5:30 in the morning. And we were driving over the big hill, going to West Point, the mountain, going to West Point. And I see somebody, we both see somebody across the street in West Point gear marching up the hill. So this is summer of 1986. And I'm like, something's not right about that. So I turned around, made a U-turn, rolled down the window, and said, hey, where are you headed? And the person said, I'm headed to the bus station in Newburgh. Can you give me a ride? And I said, hey, certainly. And so we got him in the car, so he was controlled. And then I said, hey, tell me why you're going to the bus station. He goes, I went to West Point. I'm a plebe, and you would never guess how hard that is. I said, well, lucky that we're here, because we can both tell you, we just both graduated. And, you could see the fear. I was looking through the rearview mirror in my car, and you could just see the fear in his eye. And I said, hey, we're not going to do anything to you. We're just going to take you down so you can call your parents. So we took him to the stadium. He called his parents, and we took him to the Central Guard room. But I mean, that was one of the most
Yeah.
interesting stories. The clean stories. There was a lot of.
But he was hoofing it for Newburgh.
He was hooking. He was from Boston. He was going to catch a bus home, and he had started. He had started the night
That
before.
was it.
Yep, and he was up Storm King Mountain on the
You're
top.
kidding me.
Yeah, yeah.
So, there's recent YouTube footage of one of the new cadets running off the plane, and they act like they just invented that. All the way back there in 1986, they were hoofing it out of there.
That's exactly right. But he got caught.
Good, crazy. Yeah, that didn't look right. Oh goodness.
As a graduate assistant, so you got to work with the cadets. You got to work with phenomenal coaches that we had on the football team. Rogie and I worked in the weight room with a coach named Bob Roguski, who went on to 24 years in the NFL and Super Bowl championship with the Baltimore Ravens. Influenced our lives. That's how I met my wife, is through him. So it was a fantastic.
Really?
Yep. And we finished at the season. So after the Navy game, that team did not go to bowl. So after the Army Navy game, we got a little bit of vacation and then went to OBC the first week of January. So it was a great experience.
You had one season to impact the team, and then off you went to get yourself going.
That's right.
What was that like to be like? What was it? 8 months more senior to the rest of the lieutenants in your class? Or did that matter, or you just fell in with your ROTC colleagues in OBC?
Member of squad. It just, we were all the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so did you just take the system? And that was when how did air defense work at the time? Did you fall into the system you were assigned, or was that did you get special training at OBC?
I think we did our post night. I think you also got to pick your specialty. And so at the time we had short range air defense, which was divisional air defense. A lot of it you could trace back to the post, and I think some of us knew that. That was another uninformed decision that I made. Is a bunch of us, Joe DePino and Weasel, and they just started saying Hood is good, and so for an uneducated reason, everybody went to Hood. But I chose Fort Hood, so two divisions at the time: Second Infantry or Second Armored Division and First Cav. Went to that shore ed unit, and when you went to OBC, you had a track, and the track was either the high altitude air defense, which was either the Hawk or Patriot. You went together for the core class, and then you separated for your weapon system transition. So we separated for the weapons transition, which short at the time was Chaparral and Vulcan. So a couple weeks in that, and then you went to
Yeah. Because I know Weez, as we were saying, is a Patriot guy, so he went to the high altitude stuff.
He transitioned, so he
went off to Hood. You went.
Yeah. So Weasel was actually a shore ed guy at the beginning. So he went to the shore ed weapon system and track, and he was in a shore ed unit. And then when he transitioned at some point, he transitioned to Patriot and learned it, exceptionally quickly, and was a fantastic Patriot officer in Desert Storm.
Apparently a dead eye with those things, according to the stories of his success over there. But so you mentioned your wife. Did you meet her in that period, or was that later in time?
Yeah, so I met her when I was a grad assistant. She was a cousin of Bob Roguski's wife, and so she was from Clarksburg, West Virginia, and she came up to visit on a football weekend, and we met. We didn't start dating for about 4 years. I think about 4 years later, I went to the advanced course at a course called the Amphibious Warfare School. It was basically the Marine Corps advanced course, and she's a speech therapist, and she was working there in the DC area, and we started dating, and then got married 2 years, 18 months later or something.
And that was even before cell phones. So that shows a certain amount of diligence on your part.
It was pretty good. It was absolutely before cell phones and the internet.
Right.
And our correspondence was by letter, and so she didn't know my last name. So I can remember that when I wrote her the first letter, it was Dan S. And then we corresponded through letters, and I ran to the R, the last part of Sauter, and I just kept going. So Sauter, and then I put N, and then E, and then She didn't know my name. Even when we first started dating, she didn't know my name. Sauter or something. It was a funny story.
No idea.
Yeah,
But that's these kids don't understand these days. We were writing letters. We had to
that's
work at it.
that's exactly right. The good old fashioned.
Swiping. Good for you. So at the 5 year point, was she part of the picture and part of that decision, or how did that work? Because if you were at the advanced course, were you past the 5 years?
No, I think that's my. I think that's when I peaked as a military officer. I actually got frocked. I got to pin on. I think it was the first one in class of 1986 to be promoted because I got frocked to go to the Marine Corps course. The Marines they have a different sort of sequence, and so they were probably 5 years older than us. So they go do recruiting or other assignments before they get it. There's some real advantages of that, and then they went to the Captain's Career Corps. So I was junior, and the Army sent 6 Army officers, and they said, "Hey, we don't want you to be lieutenant going with these senior captains." So I actually got frocked before I left Fort Hood, Texas, and went there for a year. And
Nice. Look at that.
yeah, and then I went to Korea, Second Infantry Division, and I think that's probably where I made the decision to stay in. I just kept, I really liked it, and I kept, thinking, hey, I can make a difference. I can definitely be better than my, battery commander or battalion commander. And so I just kept going, and I really
Yeah. And so it just kept rolling. So you went to Korea for the captain's portion, and then when did you all get married and starting the family?
Yeah, so I extended in Korea to take command, and so in the mid tour, we went on I met her in Hawaii. She was in Virginia. Met her in Hawaii. We got engaged, and then we actually got married at the tail end of that. She came over to Korea for a couple months. She got pregnant. She got pregnant while she was in Korea, and stuck it out for a while, but it just became too burdensome to be in that type of environment. I mean, I could just tell you the environment. So we had to rent a place off of the little camp, and I can remember walking her to that house, and it was in the very agricultural area, rice paddies and everything. And I walked her in this little house that we were renting, and it was just solid floors and a rat. And I'm not exaggerating. You can't see it. Just imagine a rat that was about 2 feet long, ran right through the middle of the house and down the open pipe that was in the middle of the kitchen. So we rented that place the whole time. My battalion commander, we were on it was just 2 batteries that were on Camp Stanton in the Western Corridor. We rented a place downtown to be legal, but he let her stay inside of the, and other spouses stay inside of the BOQ. So it was pretty good environment. So.
Oh, so the house, I got you. The house was the address where you took the mail in as a version of it. Yeah, I got you.
Yeah.
Because that rat, you have to name them when they get that big, I think, is the problem.
Yeah, they're big. Yeah, the other great example is when I first got there, they said, "Hey, you want to go up and supply store and get a mouse trap?" And so I went up there, and he gave me this thing that was 2 feet. I mean, it looked like you could kill a bear with it. And I can remember I set it and then went up to eat at the DFAC, which was across the street on the compound. And I came back, and there was blood all over my office. I mean, all over my office, on the walls, on my calendar. I thought somebody had been murdered in my office. And I go down and look at the rat trap, and the thing had gotten out of the rat trap. It was that big and died a violent death.
We're just wounded.
It was just wounded. He said, "I am not giving into this this monstrosity of a mouse trap." The guy's going to the office, but it was a good assignment.
Yeah.
And from there, we moved to Fort Benning. I worked at the infantry school as air defense instructor for OCS, OBC, and advanced course. I really liked that assignment. Down at Fort Benning. That's where we had our first son. And from there, it was off and running. I went up to West Point and worked in DMI, and then a series of
you went up to West Point and worked at DMI. So did the graduate assistant role kind of set you up for the connections there, or how did that work?
No, I just got it was sort of surprising. I just got a call from the branch that, hey, we'd like to send you up to West Point. And the branch reps and the instructors at West Point really are influential on the quality and caliber and number of cadets that choose a branch. I mean, it's just you're with those instructors. And for me,
Yeah.
it was Ray Canny, and we weren't doing air defense was not doing well at the time. So they said, hey, we want to go up there, and we want you to go up there and work in DMI. It was a great assignment. I got to do teach military instruction, and I got to do honor things with cadets. I got to run the air assault school that was across the street at Camp Smith during the summer. It was just a great assignment, and I really enjoyed it.
With the important mission of representing the branch to the cadets, right? As to try to
great support from the 2-star branch commander. Did Air Defender of the Week stuff, and I think when I went in there, I think we were like 28 cadets, that had chosen air defense, and the following year we got 58, and that's thanks to great instructors that we had, guys like Joe D'Antonio, Bob Carl, all in different departments, and they did a very good job of seeding West Point with talented leaders that could really influence, and it created a pipeline going into our Army, and then it was the Army's responsibility to keep those cadets.
And how did that work? Did you all the air defense officers get together and say, hey, here's what's the newest, or here's how we should present the branch? Or did you guys think about that stuff as a group, or was it just generally everyone be good examples and show the branch? How did that work?
No, so I was the branch rep in DMI. So I was responsible for the training and education of and recruiting of air defense officers. But I could not have gotten better support from everybody we had out there. I mean, Dave Pender was thinking DPE at the time. I mean, we had phenomenal officers, both men and women, that were up there. And so all I'd have to do is say, hey, we're having a meeting. There's a branch week. Hey, we're going to have equipment displayed. Hey, we're going to have social, whatever it was. They were just exceptional. And it really proved itself in the numbers and the quality of West Point cadets that we got to go to Air Defense Branch.
I mean, you'll never know the small moments that created that 58, but the 58 is kind of the proof. But it's the small moments that you all created that generated that extra activity, or the extra signups, right? Or the additional.
I give all the credit to those guys that were either tax or were in one of the academic departments, because they really had the day-to-day interaction with cadets and were really influential. So it was absolutely a result of their efforts.
Unbelievable. Then where'd you go from there?
So there I went to Leavenworth. We went to Leavenworth. We had one son that was born at West Point. So our second son, Michael, was born at West Point.
Okay.
We went to Fort Leavenworth. We did the 2-year tour. So there's some irony there. Here's a guy who barely gets into West Point, and I did my second year at the School of Advanced Military Studies. There you go. It was a great 2 years. Our third son was born there. We were with peers, classmates that were just down the road from us, and the kids got to play soccer together. I mean, it was just a fantastic 2 years at Fort Leavenworth, and then from there, you've got to pay back for Sam. So I was the chief of plans and exercise. Working with Greg Butts, our chief of plans down at 3rd Infantry Division at Fort Stewart. A great experience, working at a division staff at a fairly high level for majors, and it was a great experience. Our fourth son was born there at Fort Stewart, and we were with Rogie. So I talked a little about Rogie. We were with Rogie at West Point. He was TAC, phenomenal TAC. Did a great job for the Armor Branch.
So he was there when you were there.
He was there, yeah. And then we were at Carlisle together, and then we were at Fort Stewart together. So then from Fort Stewart to the National Training Center, again, Rogie and family were with us there. So a great couple years.
How did you guys parallel? Was it just by chance you guys showed up and suddenly you were there again, or how did it even work?
Yeah, just by chance. Yeah.
And this whole time, how did you all relate back to the football program? Was it I know now it's kind of a thing where the academy and the academic or the athletic program is much more developed in terms of cultivating older relationships. But was the football program always good with keeping in touch with you guys, or how did that work?
Yeah, the football, they've got an Army football club that was good. For the early part of our career, a lot of those coaches had been coaches under Coach Young. Bob Sutton
Right.
was the head coach when we were at West Point as tax and instructors, and so we knew a lot of the coaches, really strong relationships, and we kept those for the early part of our career. At some point, that sort of
Right.
transition, when Bob Sutton left and new coaches came in, and you lost some of that touch point with the football program, but we maintained a pretty good contact and engagement with the football team.
Yeah. Yeah. That stuff. Those relationships can be consciously cultivated. It seems like football, being the more dominant sport, does that. But I know that some of the other ones have gotten better over time at reaching out to older grads. So okay.
Yeah.
And then off you went. So that this takes you to what point in your career? You got 4 boys at this point?
4 boys. Yes, we had 4 boys at that time.
Yeah.
We were at NTC. They started to downsize the short range air defense battalion. So we were slated to go to Germany. My wife was excited about going to Germany, and we got a call saying, "Hey, we're inactivating the battalion that's in Germany in 1st Infantry Division, which I was supposed to command."
Yeah.
Sent me down to Fort Bliss in sort of a holding pattern. I worked as a chief of plans at a 32nd Army Air Missile Defense Command. A great experience working with some great people. And then about 10 months later, headed over to command in Korea, 2nd Infantry Division.
Okay. And that was unaccompanied, I'm assuming, because you had quite a family going at that point.
It was a company tour, but we were moving. The battalion was slated to move to Fort Lewis, Washington. So I left the family at Fort Bliss so they could start the academic year. And then by December, I think we had restationed the battalion, and I went down and picked them up at Fort Bliss and took them up to Fort Lewis, Washington.
So what are the age of the boys at this time?
So
the oldest now has had quite a bit of exposure, right, to the Army life.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think Daniel, our oldest, went to 3 high schools, and I think he went to his first high school, a Catholic high school in Tacoma, before we left. And so they were middle school and grade school at that point.
And how did you handle you have so much tradition and legacy and stuff you could have visited upon those boys. So you got West Point football. How did you handle kind of letting them chart their own course versus, kind of putting a picture of West Point on the wall and pointing to it every day? What was your approach on that?
Yeah, there's a couple good stories on that one. So we were actually at Carlisle at the War College when my oldest son, Daniel, he did his sophomore year at Carlisle, and the priest came up to us, to Mary and I, after the mass and said, "Hey, congratulations, your son is going to West Point." I mean, he's a sophomore in high school. And I can vividly remember telling the priest, I said, he better have a backup plan. And he did. I mean, we had some friends that had worked at admissions. I said, "Hey, look at his file." And I can remember one of them that, he said, "Hey, he's got all the sports and leadership and good grades, but he's really got to do something outside of sports leadership." And I told him that. And the next Monday, I'm not exaggerating, the next Monday, he had these business cards printed of lawn care service, and he was doing volunteer stuff for deployed, that's OIF and OEF. And he was doing, start his own company. And so he did it on his own. But one of the things that's really unique is I always felt most sorry for people at West Point that were there for their parents and not for themselves. I mean, it's not for everybody.
Yeah.
And so we never put any pressure on the boys. We wanted to make sure that they really thought through it. But I remember Daniel was being interviewed when he's going to West Point, and he was talking to the reporter, and he said, "Hey, I grew up, with just exceptional role models, Rogie, Mickey Haydak, just guys in our class, the Pintos. And and he made that decision that he was comfortable with that. And that's like if your dad was an electrician or worked at the steel mill or was a doctor, or was a lawyer.
Yeah.
I think that's just the comfortable path. And had seen and been around people that he really respected. And they made that choice absolutely 100% by themselves. But as a parent, I think Mary and I, the most rewarding thing was to go see all four of the boys after they had made their decision, in the first semester at their school, and just see the smiles on their face. And so it was their choice, and they made the right decisions. And it's really, really rewarding as a parent.
So all four of them. So how did that work?
Yeah. So
all four of them went to West Point.
Yeah. So there's some commissioner stories there too. First one goes to West Point. 2 years later, Michael, our second son, very good athlete, very good academics. He applied. He started the application process to both West Point and Air Force. But he got tired of following his brother's footsteps, my belief.
Yeah.
And so he chose Air Force. And one of the things
he chose Air Force.
Yeah. One of the things I don't like is sort of the parochialism. And I can remember to this day, we were at a soccer game at Fort Bliss, Texas, and General Tommy Franks was the father of Jackie Matlock. I think Patrick Matlock retires 3 stars, class 88. But Tommy Franks was at a soccer game where the Matlock's boys were playing. I think it was actually his daughter playing with my sons. And Tommy Franks came up to my son and said, "Hey, congratulations." He said that, the United States of America needs great officers in every branch, and thanks for serving. And
that's great.
Yeah. So he went. So he chose the Air Force, and he's an Osprey pilot. And doing great things in the Air Force Special Operations Command. Our third son, Matthew, we moved after I retired. We moved to Huntsville, so he graduated from Catholic school there. And he chose West Point. He was a really talented athlete and went up there and played sprint for 3 years. Really proud of him because our other sons used to call him the slowest of the Sauter boys from an academic perspective. And he goes up to West Point, takes the hardest, major of all the boys, civil engineering, and as a star man at West Point after 4 years, throughout his 4 years. And
it's amazing the power of just proving your brothers wrong.
That's right. That is 100% true. So he just finished the engineer captain career course, and they allow him to go to a master's. So he's finishing his master's degree, and then he'll go down to Fort Hood, Texas, and he's with his wife Olivia. So his high school sweetheart. Made it from sophomore year of high school through West Point. Got married shortly after. Man. And I didn't mention our other daughter, Leora. Super proud of her. Classmate. Phenomenal woman, like so many of our classmates, the women of 86 or chicks of 86, as they like to be called. But she was a logistician, went down for her first assignment, Fort Bragg, North Carolina, in the 82nd. I can remember the story of going into, or Daniel tells me, of her going into first unit in infantry battalion and being the logistics officer and sergeant major saying, "What the F is she doing in this headquarters?" And because she was one of the first women in there, and deployed with them to northern Iraq and Syria, and was rated number 2 officer coming out of that in the unit. And so just I had the privilege of serving with great women through our career. She's an example of that. So second daughter-in-law was friend of Leora. Went to high school with her and met Michael, our second son, in high school. She was a nurse, fantastic woman. So we've been blessed with, I call it the Sauter women. I joke with their parents about they're my daughters now, and really good. And then our fourth son, Jack, he took a different path. And so he probably wouldn't have gotten, due to allergies, probably wouldn't have gotten to West Point, but he decided to go a different path and went to Notre Dame and studied science and got to work after postgraduate at Sloan Kettering Hospital. It's just I can't even I can't even fathom the things that they do, personally. It's not like you're working, in a hospital doing nothing. I mean, it's cutting DNA, creating DNA, modifying, working on
Yeah, yeah.
NK cells. And he just started this year a MD PhD program at Cornell in New York City, and so he'll be engaged for the next 7 more years. But that's the last
And they're
one.
managing all the technology that's doing that stuff, right? They're not
It's
there with a
unbelievable. And
scalpel.
by
It's all
themselves. I mean, it's just I can't.
machinery.
I used to call when I got out. I worked for Lockheed Martin, and I used to drive back over the hill. We live a little bit outside of Huntsville, and I used to just call and just listen because I just was, enamored with the science and the things that they were doing. It's phenomenal. So, and I
Yeah,
would like to also though mention my wife and talk about her a little bit more, but
sure.
uh, all the credit goes to her for raising those boys. So
Yeah,
phenomenal
yeah,
life.
yeah. From the initial, running across the floor all the way through, she seems to have stuck in there really well.
Yeah, Rogie told her that he didn't think she was going to make it when we were we were at West Point. Rogie, Mickey, and I were all in Korea at the same time, and they said, "Hey," he told me one time, he said, "Hey, we're really proud of Mary because we didn't think she was going to make it, but she did a phenomenal job through from the rats."
It's just more of a credit to her, the path, her start point. She came
Yeah,
through it. Good for her.
yeah.
Right. And so you ended your career. So you retired at what year point, and just catch us up on the end of the active service.
Yeah, so 27 years. I did my last 4 years in a pretty unique position. It was a regional air and missile defense headquarters. It was based at El Paso, Texas, with the First Armor Division. But we wore 2 hats really. It was a general officer command, and we were the force provider of all air and missile defense forces out of the U.S. But we wore a really unique hat, and we had a warfighting hat that we wore in Central Command. And so we had a headquarters forward with people forward, and I think we had 9,500 soldiers in 6 states and 6 countries in the Middle East. And so all the things that are going on right now, all near and dear to my heart, just because we lived that for 4 years. I was the G3 and then the chief of staff, and then finished up as the deputy commander of that organization, and just got to see great Americans every day doing unbelievable things around the globe.
It turns out the world has made ADA one of the most important branches. So, in the fullness of time, short range air defense is kind of a big deal.
It is, but also his Patriot is still there. So I'll highlight Rob and Beth Healy. Just phenomenal. She's a Notre Dame graduate, raised 3 great kids, and Robbie. I'm just enamored at the number of our classmates that have kids that have gone through West Point. But Healy's are sort of unique. So he's done very well from a business perspective. Robbie did not have to go to West Point. He chose to go to West Point. He graduated. I got to see him in an officer basic course out at Fort Sill. He is forward in the Middle East. And he, has been in harm's way for a long time. But doing great things. I think he's got over 50 confirmed kills, and those that's not a hey, let's confirm kills, but every one of those ballistic missiles threatens not only force projection capabilities of U.S. forces in the region, but also the lives of great American people, men and women of all services. And so, keep him in our thoughts, and you can go through Dino, the Pintos. You can go through Lewis. He just got back from a deployment to Iraq. Our classmates and their kids, just phenomenal stories, each and every one of them by themselves. And sometimes we forget that they're in harm's way every day, but they are.
Yeah. And now you're what Huntsville was your retirement place, but you did not slow down.
Yeah, so I worked initially. Yeah, I worked initially with Lockheed Martin, great company, great people. I got a lot of experiences. I was really I had to think a lot about what I wanted to do when I got out, and I wasn't sure I wanted to
Yeah,
start
yeah.
a business, go to work, be a coach, whatever. But I thought, hey, I could contribute, to international partners by working the business development, help them shape requirements and build their capacity, all which is very valuable now in the Middle East. And so I did that for a little bit, and I switched over to program management. I ran the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia Terminal High Altitude Area Defense Program, got them capability, and then I ran production for the THAAD weapon system, both from a ground and interceptor perspective, for a couple of years. But at some point in there, I just
Hmm.
looked around the globe and said, "Hey, technology advanced so much, and the geopolitical environment has changed so much that we've got to provide warfighters capability on a much faster pace. It can't take 12 years to get the hands get the capability in hands of warfighters." And so I left Lockheed Martin, retired from Lockheed Martin because I'd worked with them for 11 years, and I went to work with startups
Yeah.
and a bunch of really smart people trying to make a difference in the world. And absolutely the focus of the companies that I've experienced is not about the dollars. It's about how do we do things faster and really contribute from an industry perspective, in the defense of our nation.
Well, wouldn't have to go far to read that air defense and getting things deployed quickly and in an innovative fashion at this point is probably the tip of the spear globally at this point. So I think you're in the middle of the action in general. So it feels like that's the right place for you to be in terms of continuing to contribute.
Yeah, I think that's been the case, to be honest with you, for about a decade, and a lot of it's under the radar. A lot of people is we had men and women soldiers from the air defense community that have been deployed, just extraordinary op tempo. Their op tempo was greater than every branch in the Army, to include SF, for a
Right.
period of time, is just with that forward presence, whether it be in the Pacific or whether it be in the Middle East, is that it just it has a toll. It takes a toll on men and women as they're deploying. But I always
Yeah.
I like to spend time with whenever I'm feeling down about the nation, I just go in the airport and talk to soldiers. I met this young man the other probably 6 months ago that was 21 years old and had already deployed. I could identify him right off the bat because he was wearing Korean, outfit, and asked him about his career. And
Right.
21 years old, had already served in Jordan, Korea, Iraq, and was redeploying or restationing from PCSing, I guess is the right term, from Korea to go back to the
Yeah.
Middle East. And just think of that, and from 18 to 21, and think of all those locations and the importance of the jobs that
Yeah. Yeah.
he was doing. Soldiers just like him.
Yeah. 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 And it's not slowing down, right? It's
No, I
not
don't think
slowing down.
anytime soon.
Hmm. Hmm. Dan Sauter, is there any story we haven't told that any bit that you'd love to bring up and share with the rest of the classmates?
No, when I sort of told you that I would do this, and I appreciate you doing it. I just really would like
Yeah.
to focus on our classmates, and I just can't tell you how much I value the relationships of our classmates. And Tony Guzzi, didn't know him real well, still in uniform.
Hmm.
I told him I'd put a thing on a West Point thing, and I was looking for tickets for my mom for the Army Navy game while I was in the Middle East, and Tony came back and made sure that my mom was taken care of. Matthew, our third son, was at West Point at the same time that his son Lewis was there, and he took care of him like he was his own son for that time. The DePinos have always
Yeah.
been, fantastic. Weasel has always been a fantastic friend of our family. Mickey Haydak, godfather of our third son, Matthew, just strong relationships, and it just doesn't matter. Anytime you're in need, is a classmate's there. Rick Minicozy's another one. I served with Mick with Rick Minicozy at Fort Hood, and I always knew him, and I never, because he was Landon Lack's roommate and lived down the street from us, and we were always friends, but I really haven't gotten to know him intimately until after he got out of the service and I got out of the service. But I have not met in my
Yeah.
life a more hardworking, more, generous and more humble person than Rick Minicozy. And you can look anytime you go see, and Rick's there, he's not in the front of the crowd. He's always in the back.
Right.
And don't let that confuse you. There is nobody in our class that is, as generous and humble as Rick Minicozy. So, I just have
meanwhile, he's enabled the entire gathering, and he's in the back, and nobody would know it unless you know it, right? Yeah.
Exactly right.
He's a super connector in the class, and nobody really knows it.
Yeah.
Rick always has been, right?
Yeah.
I appreciate it. No, it's great. All those names and more. I mean, we've got so many people of that caliber tucked in all sorts of corners, quietly making things go. And so it's you point right to it.
Yeah, Johnny Mack's another great example. I mean, just think of Johnny Mack.
Yeah.
I mean, our classmates just standing up and say, "Hey, we're going to do the right thing," and leaders, and shout out again to all the the women in class of 1986, because I served with them in uniform. I've watched them outside, and they're leaders, like Kristen French and Mary Ellen and people teaching in class, in classrooms, and we didn't appreciate it at the time, but we were just absolutely lucky to have them, in our formations, and I truly value what they contribute to, the Army and their communities, and some great examples.
Absolutely. And now we have the chance to refresh those bonds, which I think is the great opportunity we have, right? So as we go forward,
exactly what you're doing, and why you're an example of somebody just said, "Hey, come on a podcast," but that's exactly what you're doing is helping to facilitate those relationships, and I truly appreciate it, Paul. It makes a huge difference.
Yeah. Absolute pleasure. The reward is just doing it in and of itself. Dan, thanks very much for joining. Great stories, great connection, and great honoring of the classmates. Very much appreciate it when someone like yourself does that, because it is what makes this whole thing go. We're not individuals; we're part of a really amazing group. So I really appreciate it and enjoyed talking to you.
Super. Thanks, Paul. I appreciate it. Have a great day.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Courage Never Quits podcast, where any member of the class of 1986 who is willing to tell their story will be a guest. To get the word out and stay up to date on the latest episodes, hit the like and subscribe button. With over 900 living graduates, we have a lot of stories to tell, and you don't want to miss any of them. We'll see you in the next episode.